If you are enjoying this podcast and other podcasts on the Dragon Wagon Radio Network, be sure to check out the Dragon Wagon Shop. Awesome t-shirts and mugs from your favorite shows so you can tout your podcast pride all while supporting your favorite podcast network. And make sure to check it often for new items and limited time designs. Shop now at dragonwagonradio.com/shop and get your dragon swag on.
Again.
We just started again.
Oh, okay.
Mark and I tried to record a minute ago and basically crashed and burned.
Yeah, we had like a dual aneurysm and we just couldn't think of the words to say, so we got some Corona. Why did you get Corona? This isn't even beer.
This was actually what was just in my fridge.
Oh.
That was it.
Okay.
So I don't even know where it came from. I think Orla's sister brought it. Yes, she brought it. She brought us Mexican beer from Liverpool. No, they must have bought it.
Yeah, but it's potentially beer that you just found somewhere.
Sure.
I wouldn't be drinking any found beer if I were you.
I mean, I found it in my fridge, so
right.
Presumably,
you gotta have
a good place.
You gotta have faith in what's in your fridge, I would say.
Sure. Well, should we start with the cheers?
Sure. Cheers.
Did you actually have a sip? Because I haven't yet.
I have.
Yeah.
You're driving me to the drink, Chad.
Mark's ready for a nap. I'm ready for a nap.
And it's only 4:30.
Great way to start this episode on a Saturday. This is Mark's choice this week.
Yeah. Got another 90s movie here for you.
And I'm not sure that I've seen it.
I think you would know if you had.
Yeah, I feel like I actually actively avoided this movie because I had zero interest in seeing it. So I'm glad you brought it.
Well, as everybody knows already from the podcast title, this is House on Haunted Hill. This is sort of inspired. My choice is inspired by the Netflix series, which I just finished, The Haunting of Hill House, which is based on the book Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson.
Totally different
thing, but very similar titles. This movie, House on Haunted Hill, is a remake of a Vincent Price movie from I think the 50s, where a millionaire offers a bunch of people $1 million or what have you to stay the night in the haunted house. The House on Haunted Hill, rather.
Are there other movies out there that kind of have this sort of plot? I feel like
it seems very familiar. It seems archetypal, but I can't think of any other ones. I think it's been reused a lot in like sitcoms, like just it's such a ridiculous premise that they've kind of.
I'm surprised they didn't all receive a golden ticket or something.
And that, it's sort of like Geoffrey Rush plays the millionaire in this movie. He does play sort of a Willy Wonka type of character who designs like theme park rides for the ultimate scare to really freak people out at theme parks. And this is sort of an extension of his job, and he's trying to like get back at all these people by scaring the daylights out of them at the house. But is it really haunted?
Scaring them or killing them?
Oh, that's sort of the question, isn't it?
Yeah, we can't talk about that.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
Yeah.
But we'll have the whole movie to talk about that and the whole after discussion for that. Have you watched any of this Netflix show? I cannot recommend it highly enough.
That's what I've heard from many people, and we were just talking about watching it. I didn't think we'd get to because Orla does not like horror stuff.
Ooh.
And
this is really grounded in like characters' emotions and histories. It's about a family.
Well, I think we're gonna get a chance to, because at least I think her brother convinced her that it wasn't really scary.
It's scary.
I mean,
it's scary as shit.
Don't say that too loudly, or I won't get to see it. But hopefully we get to watch it. It looks really cool.
Yeah, the only bad thing I can say about it is that every character, even the characters you don't really give a shit about, everybody gets a monologue or two, And it's like, okay, enough with the jabber. Let's get on with the story here.
Now, actually, this brings up a good topic that I want to kind of hit on, because I'm getting kind of sick of TV.
Okay.
Because there's so much good stuff.
Yes. But then when everything is good,
like,
nothing is good. Like, you can't discriminate between the good shows because there's only so much time.
Yeah.
So it's
but
only the standout
then you
ones.
miss things, It's like, yeah. I guess...
When everything
is
used
it the
to be...
standout, or is it the best presented? Like,
well, marketing has a lot to do with it.
There's shows like the one you worked on CBS All Access that no one's seen, because no one has CBS All Access.
Despite the
but it could be
budget.
A better show than, say.
Yeah. People just haven't given it a chance because no one can watch it.
How many shows are you watching right now?
Jesus, we're halfway through Ozark season 2. I'm halfway through Briscoe County Jr. season 1.
Jesus, that's like
the only
that's
season.
not even modern.
Yeah, well, I got to go backwards a little bit. Dexter, I've seen the first 3 seasons. I haven't even started Breaking Bad, but that's like the next big one on my list.
God.
We just finished catching up on the Stephen King one, Castle Rock.
So you're all over the place.
I'm all over the place.
There's not even like on any given night you just roll a dice or something to figure out what you're gonna watch.
Well, once we got a few episodes into Haunting of a Hill House, I almost said House on Haunted Hill because they're so similar. Once we got a few episodes deep in that, it became apparent to me that this is really fucking good. And we need to binge this if at all possible. I don't really binge watch shows because I don't have that much time, frankly. And that was one that made me go, we're doing this. We're doing 4 episodes tonight.
Did Ashley like it as much as you did?
I don't know if she liked it as much as I did, but she was definitely into it. Yeah. There's, technically amazing in parts. There's one episode that is a series of really long takes. It's like made of like 5-10 minute long takes. And it was just like, wow. They're not like playing for the camera or anything. It still feels totally natural, totally well done.
I'm excited to see it. Like, it kind of...
I cannot sing enough praises.
It came out of nowhere, I will say that. Because
yeah, I saw the trailer and I was like, oh no, is that based on the Liam Neeson thing? And it's not really. It's like a really loose adaptation of the book. The Liam Neeson one, you may remember, is like a scientist brings a bunch of random ass people to a house to study the paranormal activity that's going on there.
I barely remember that movie.
Yeah, me too. It was directed by Jan de Bont.
Well, that was a remake too, wasn't it?
That was a remake, yeah. The original one it came out in 1967, I think. I don't know who was in that one. But I believe the premise of the book is like it's a small group of people doing some paranormal research. And the series, one character is sort of involved in that type of work, kind of, sort of. But it's really about the family dynamic, why everybody hates each other. It goes back to when they were kids.
What is it about houses, haunted houses and groups of people, like in movies going to them, like whether it's the Haunted Mansion, whether it's Amityville Horror.
Well, I think I can only remember one movie off the top of my head where it's about one person in a haunted house, and that's that movie 1408 with John Cusack. And that's a haunted hotel.
Yeah, wasn't that a haunted hotel room?
It was one room out of the whole hotel.
It wasn't even outside of that one room. I remember that being good. I don't remember anything about it.
Yeah, it's a fantastic movie, and it's basically John Cusack's show. There are other people that kind of appear, but it's mainly him reacting to the weird shit going on around him. And it's still good.
Is it just...
But groups of people, I feel like, you've got... when you got a group of 4 different people, you got 4 different perspectives on what they're doing and how they feel about each other.
Great, so it's Rashomon?
Yeah.
the Rashomon on Hill House?
Well, there's always going to be the skeptic. There's going to be the true believer. There's going to be the idiot who's scared of the cat jumping out of the shadows.
Yeah.
You just have to have some variety in there.
Yeah. Going back on the subject of TV, we just finished up season 3 of The Man in the High Castle.
Mm-hmm. I've only seen the first season.
Season 2 is probably the best. Season 3 is really good, though.
Season 1, can I get into spoilers here?
Sure. Anybody looking to watch The Man in
that's
the High Castle,
what, 3 years old now?
Close your ears.
I just had Breaking Bad spoiled for me on Twitter, and I didn't even go looking for that shit. But it's been 6 years since it was off the air.
Are we talking about Breaking Bad spoilers now or something?
No. But I think it's been a while.
How do you know it was true?
I confirmed with a few people.
Yeah. Why would you do that?
Because I knew it was true already, but then when I mentioned it, they were like, oh yeah, well that makes sense because it's...
that might actually help you because I think Breaking Bad, the experience was the journey more than anything. And
I've seen the first 5 minutes.
I would say the ending of it, you kind of just assume is going a specific direction.
Right. Now that I know what happens, I kind of was like, oh, well, yeah, I can see why that would happen.
off air, I'm kind of curious to hear what you heard.
Okay.
So.
It was the basics, just the basics, nothing specific.
Good.
But TV, you were saying TV is, like, you don't like TV because too much of it is good?
Well...
Hey, it's employing both of us.
It seems to be... it's frustrating because it's like Netflix, to me, does not do any real promotion.
Mm-hmm. They just put the trailer or whatever out on the
it feels like it comes
page.
out like a day before. Nobody sees the trailers anymore because there's so many new shows.
Right, they're just releasing it.
So there's no fanfare that comes along with shows like The Haunting on Hill House.
Mm-hmm.
Did I say that right?
Haunting of Hill House.
See, I can't even get it right.
Well, we got the wrong words in front of us.
Yeah.
It's very confusing.
But it feels like it's kind of been a part of taking away the luster from movies as well. And
yeah, when things are less special overall.
Some movies are just less special in general.
Yeah. Well, like an hour and a half movie, you kind of go, okay, well, that's like 2 episodes of TV.
Yeah. Well, we were kind of talking about this at work yesterday, like the movies that transcend being a movie. You know, there's certain movies that you go and it feels more epic than 6 seasons of a TV show. Mm-hmm. You know, and it has more of a lasting effect. So movies, I think, do have that ability. It's certainly more rare, and
Blade Runner 2049 was better than any season of TV I've seen in the last 10 years.
Which is weird because now TV is kind of in this weird pocket of, you know, it's like, are these things that we're ever going to go back and revisit?
Right. Like, honestly, The Haunting on Hill House is one. In a few years, I might want to watch it again because it was such a great story and so well told. I think after time, I'll forget enough of the things that it'll be like seeing it all over again. But yeah, I mean, TV shows aren't events like they used to be. Like when Lost first came out, it became like a cultural moment. You had to know what was going on in Lost. Yeah. And the week by week release of TV in a traditional sense, that kind of helps, because now when BoJack Horseman comes out, you can finish that in 2 days and everybody's done talking about it within a week. Yeah. And it's not really a big deal anymore. Everybody knows the jokes.
It's gone forever.
Yeah.
Unless you go back. I mean, at least BoJack like has the animated thing going for it, so people go back for that reason to watch. Because you can just put one on and be like, all right, cool, whatever.
Yeah, they're funny, and that show is very.
But it's not like you can just put on a random episode of Lost and be like, oh yeah, this one's fun. Like,
yeah, like the argument is like, there's the Star Trek model, where you can really just watch any episode out of order and it will still make sense. Yeah. Or there's the X-Files type of thing where you need to see everything in order to make sense of the whole mythology.
That's not necessarily true. I mean, X-Files, you can watch anything. Right?
Well, the earlier seasons, I guess you could watch any order. Because it was a monster of the week type show. But then as the mythology was built, it became a Lost thing, became very serialized, where you had to know all the pieces of this ongoing story. Right.
I remember...
that's frustrating, because when you missed a week of your favorite show, it was like, oh, fuck. What's going on now?
Right. I think my last favorite show, the more I think about it, was probably Fringe. And I thought Fringe started horribly. Like, the first 9 episodes are just terrible. And
yeah, but I stuck with it.
I was trying to watch recently, and I was like, oh man, the dialogue's terrible. Like, Joshua Jackson cannot act his way out of a paper bag.
Well, that didn't change by the end anyway.
No, it didn't. But that
you better be careful. He's gonna like kill you and take your place in society if you say too much.
That show, it's just like grew and grew and grew, and it grew out of being a Monster of the Week, just like X-Files did. But it still had to kind of stick to it. I don't know why. I think it's just because the writers were like, well, we still need to keep it. That was kind of contained here and there, but
even if they didn't do a Monster of the Week, they had like a unique concept they were exploring every week. It was like an idea of the week show.
Well, what was amazing about it by the end was that those first 9 episodes that were garbage in my mind, each one of those episodes and each one of those Monsters of the Week ended up being like an integral part of a plot line or something that came up later on.
And some of that felt totally retconned. And it didn't really jibe with me, but I don't know, at least half of it did seem like, oh, they had a plan all along. Way to go, J.J. Abrams.
After working in TV for as long as
nobody
we
has
both
a plan.
It's kind of heartbreaking to learn that really there isn't a plan.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess working on Mr. Robot, there is a bit of a plan there because like the showrunner, like he's got a plan in his head, like what to do, like ultimately. So, but yeah, most shows do not have that luxury.
I don't know who the interview is with anymore. I just read this thing online in the past week where somebody was despairing over TV storytelling because the length of a story on a TV show is determined by its ratings. If it does well and it keeps getting renewed, like Walking Dead, say, what are they in season 8 now?
Right.
9? The story goes well beyond its natural conclusion because they just have to keep on coming up with more bullshit to throw out there.
Which is funny because today I was like, you know what? Maybe if I was ever going to watch Doctor Who, I'm going to go back to the beginning. And I typed into Google.
You were like, oh, 23 seasons.
I typed into Google, how many episodes of Doctor Who are there? And it came back saying, like, as of November 11th, there are 867 episodes. And I was like, holy fuck. I was like, maybe not.
I drew a line somewhere. I wanted to do the same thing. Start from the quote unquote beginning, but I was not going to mess. Doctor. I was not going to mess with anything from the late 60s or 70s or anything like that. I was just going to go back to the one from the 90s with the dude who's in all of the. He was in The Beach. He was in 28 Days Later.
The crazy Scottish man from the Full Monty. Is he Scottish?
Yeah, I think he's Scottish. That guy who played the Doctor in the 90s, that was sort of like the first bigger reboot for a modern audience. I was like, that's a good place for me to jump in. And it all kind of takes off from there.
I actually didn't know he was in Doctor Who.
Yeah, he was the leather jacket
doctor.
doctor.
We're going to look up... Is this going to be one of those things that is going to go on our board of like, they were so wrong?
Now, who is the director of 28 Days Later? I'm blanking on all these names.
Man, Slumdog.
Yeah, that director. He's in this actor who played Doctor Who is in a lot of his movies. Whoever that guy is named, that's who I'm talking about.
Both of them are on the tip of my tongue. So
not Cillian Murphy, that one. He was never a doctor, but that would be an interesting
Who's in another
choice.
Amazing show?
The Nick? No, that's Guy Pearce.
We're just feeling on
Colin Firth.
I can't even think of the name of the show now. Jesus. Well,
the one about the Irish gangs or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way,
I know the one.
I
haven't seen it.
Early onset Alzheimer's for both of us.
I think we're trying to cram too many little factoids in our brain that some are falling out. Any new shit we learn is kind of pushing old information out. That's all it is.
That's true.
We have a finite amount of RAM.
So I actually did have a point to this whole conversation about TV.
I mean, I guess
sort of.
Go ahead. Fine.
I mean, so most, American TV used to be 23, 24 episodes a year.
Now it's 10.
Now it's
even 6 sometimes.
It's basically meshed with British television, which was like 4 to 6 episodes, it seems like, and it's met somewhere in the middle, and now it seems to be settling at like 10 episodes.
Right. Which is not even Like
decent.
in Golden Globes terms, aren't those like limited
Limited
events or something like that? Like
Yeah,
it's
maybe.
a mini series instead of a full season of TV.
I'm sure by now they're
like Fargo is
adjusting
qualified,
it.
classified that way.
But
Anyway,
10 hours of TV for one season is obviously too much to watch, to just sit down and watch like a movie. Homecoming, not to ring the bell again, I felt like it was too short. It was too long to be a movie and too short to be a TV show. It's 5 hours long total.
10 half-hour episodes.
Yeah. And that to me is like, if that's kind of where it's going, I guess
Ash
that
vs.
kind of
Evil
thing
Dead was the same way.
Was it really?
Those are half-hour, 10 episodes.
I mean, those are you can just cruise right through that. I guess that you could treat a season like that as a movie. You could just sit down and watch.
Mm-hmm.
I
like
just don't know.
any of the animated series on Netflix, Paradise PD or Big Mouth,
But
those are all pretty short.
There's so much stopping and starting that it doesn't feel like it gets as far as a movie does.
Like they're trying to wrap this little episode up by the 30-minute mark.
I mean, each episode kind of has its own thing, and it is more like, at least Homecoming is like, you can't watch one without having seen the others, because it just doesn't. You're just thrown into the middle of a story, but there's still a beginning and end to each episode.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know, man. I kind of want. I almost want a show, like, if it's going to be a limited number of episodes, I almost want each episode to be an hour and a half. I know a lot of people were saying they're really excited about
Sherlock is like that.
episodes, like where it's just like, I think our, I keep hearing about other shows that are kind of doing, like Game of Thrones is doing that from now on.
Oh, okay.
Like hour and a half, basically feature length episodes. So it's almost becomes a thing where it's like, oh, we can sit down and watch a movie. Yeah. And then you could actually think back to like, oh, let's watch that one. Then I guess it's like watching a Harry Potter film.
When you've got so much in there, then each long episode can really take on its own identity.
Do you think in your head, do you have what would be the perfect model for a show? How many seasons, first of all?
How many seasons? Well, I don't know. After 5, things really start to feel like they're just drawing it out artificially. So 5 or under. Under is fine too. 2 is not enough. Yeah. So let's say 3 to 5.
3 to 5. Okay. I would probably say 3 or 4.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Some of the best 5th and 6th seasons I've seen are.
I mean, really Star Trek: The Next Generation got better as it went on.
It still has the best finale, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, the whole time jumping.
That last episode. Now that's an episode that I can just put just that on, and it's as if it's a movie.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, you don't have to have seen anything else. You can just throw that in.
Yeah, they establish what has happened pretty well within that episode.
Yeah. Wasn't that an hour and a half long?
I don't think so. It may have been a 2-parter, which I guess would make it an hour and a half, cutting out commercials.
All right. Well, now that we're significantly off on some tangent, do you have anything to say about this movie? Because like I said, if I've seen this, I've completely forgotten about it.
Yeah. Well, if anything comes back to you in the middle, let me know. We'll just stop and pick a different movie and surprise the audience with a new one. Haha! It's not House on Haunted Hill.
1999, so I would have been.
We're gonna watch Mac and Me instead.
This was my first year of film school.
You were probably too busy making movies to watch this.
Probably too busy watching art house films at this point in time. Like, I would have avoided this like a plague.
Well, this is a total popcorn movie. I think it's produced. One of the producers is Robert Zemeckis, and this was made under the Castle Rock, I don't know. But because it was based on the old one directed by William Castle, Warner Brothers made their own little company that had Castle in the title somewhere. It was like
to make
Dark Castle Pictures. Maybe that was it. Dark Castle. That sounds right.
Yeah.
But
99. I mean, this movie better stand up well. I mean, that year.
I'm afraid that it will be a little cheesy.
When's the last time you saw it?
It's been a long time. Probably before I moved out to California, 2004 or 5. It's been 10 years since I've seen this.
Yeah.
But there are some really unique effects in here with the haunting stuff that we see. Jeffrey Combs plays one of
I was
one of
about
the
to say,
creepy
isn't
characters.
he the reanimator?
He's the reanimator guy.
Okay.
Yep. He has kind of a small role, but it's creepy as fuck. And it just the overall vibe of this movie feels like somebody really having fun with the camera and like little cinematic tricks.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. We're just gonna have to watch and see how you feel about this.
All right.
And I hope I don't hate it.
Well, me too.
Okay.
So let's put it on.
Let's dive in.
This Halloween, 6 strangers have been invited to a party. If they can stay up till dawn, they'll win $1 million each. The only catch is that they'll have to live through the night.
Let the games begin.
What's in there? Hey, I think I got something.
Open the door!
Stephen, are you doing this?
No.
So did I mention at the outset that this movie is really cheesy, but still really enjoyable for me?
I just figured that.
Okay.
Based
I mean,
on-
you know my taste in movies.
I mean, that was the time. That was the era of movies when I would have seen it
Mm-hmm.
had I thought the trailer was good,
Which you didn't, obviously.
which I clearly did not. And I was right. I mean, it's not that I didn't enjoy it, but it's not the kind of movie I would have seen
Mm-hmm.
and enjoyed back then. It's the
Okay.
kind of movie that, like, bad movies come and go like constantly at the theaters, and we tend to not
Absolutely.
see most of them.
Well, it's like the bell curve. The ones at the top of the bell curve, the perfectly average movie, there's nothing special about them.
Yeah.
Like, you don't want to waste your time. You want to stick with the better ones.
But you go back and revisit them years later, they can have value.
Mm-hmm.
Like this one has value.
This one, despite its cheesiness and late 90s like level of bad special effects and stuff, probably a pretty low budget movie. Like, there's enough actually disturbing imagery in this movie. It tells me that the director did have some sort of vision. There is some sort of talent behind making this
Yeah.
pretty schlocky horror haunted house movie.
I honestly, I think the thing that hurt it the most was the production of it. Like it's overproduced. Like,
Mhm.
it's
There's
too
always flashing
glossy.
lights. Yeah, it's very slick.
It's
or
too
trying to be
glossy.
slick
It's
anyway.
clearly like this feels like I just went and saw. God, what was the Guillermo? Like one of Guillermo del Toro's movies. Like it feels set designed in those ways.
Yeah, yeah. I think with maybe a different DP or something, this could have really shown in another way. Like the production design, I think, was fine, but it was probably overlit with all these green lights and flashing fluorescence and
definitely
strobes
overlit,
and
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in the basement, you were saying they have like a 10K hanging from the ceiling.
It's like, make sure you step under that 10K.
This bright blue light in an otherwise dark basement.
Did it hold up for you?
Yeah, I still had a good time watching it. There were a few things about it. I had some thoughts.
Do you want to describe the plot first?
Let's describe the plot. So, as mentioned before, Geoffrey Rush plays like an amusement park ride designer. He's kind of known for just coming up with crazy scares and being very creative in that way. His wife, who he hates and hates him, is having a birthday party. She wants to have her party at the house on a haunted hill, just to fuck with him, I guess, because she's gonna set up her own thing and have fun and, like, I don't know, try to spook him, apparently. What we find out later is that she really is going to try to kill Geoffrey Rush at this party. But her plan gets messed up because the ghosts change the guest list. She invites her friends. Geoffrey Rush throws it out and invites his own friends, and then we see his computer turn back on and change all the names on the guest list. We find out later it's because they're the descendants of the people who worked at the house on Haunted Hill back when it was an insane asylum. And I don't really know why the house wants to kill these people. Yeah, like, what's the big deal?
When they mentioned it in the movie, I just naturally assumed that, they're gonna re-inhabit these bodies because, I don't know.
No, just kill them, apparently. We're just gonna turn them into black dust.
I mean, that I don't know. It made sense, like, to me. Like, if you're a ghost and you want to inhabit somebody, I don't know. Maybe you can't. Maybe you can't inhabit somebody else without some sort of.
They don't really
lineage.
They don't establish the rules of the ghosts.
They kind of didn't establish a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, they kind of set it up, and it felt like a softball pitch, and it seems like they didn't quite.
It's a pretty basic haunted house movie. People go walking off on their own and they die. Oops, didn't see that one coming. I guess my thoughts I was having was it would be a much more interesting movie if there were no ghosts. If it was all about the people trying to fool each other into believing they were ghosts. And the house really was haunted. And it was this, like, double, triple twist at the end, kind of like what we saw. Because Famke Janssen
has her plot,
who plays the wife.
Right.
Like, we think she is killed ostensibly by the ghosts in the house.
Yeah.
But then Peter Gallagher, that's his name, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Who is like a doctor who was on the guest list. She was a special guest of hers, it turns out. He gives her an injection. It wakes her back up from this kind of fake death.
Yeah.
And they're working together to get Geoffrey Rush.
They have their own plot. Geoffrey Rush has his own plot, and the house has its own plot.
Yes.
Basically.
So there's like a couple of times we think people are dead, but they're really not. And I think if the movie was more of like a noirish thriller with horror elements, I think it would have worked a lot better.
Yeah.
And I think it could even be remade in that fashion. Leave the paranormal stuff out of it.
I don't know that they need to remake this specific movie because there's so many movies in the same vein.
Sure.
That it's not like it's not exactly an IP that you couldn't do basically the exact same movie in a different way.
I think I saw the last half of the original, the Vincent Price movie, who our main character is half named after, Stephen Price. I saw the end of that one, and it ends with like a spooky skeleton coming out through a door and scaring someone to death so they like fall down a well or something. And then it turns out that Vincent Price really wasn't dead. It wasn't his ghost doing that, and it was sort of like that, but it was done in that William Castle super cheesy 1950s fashion.
Right.
So it was hard to take a movie like that seriously. But if you remade the original like as a straight up
remake
thriller drama,
and let John Carpenter do it,
maybe, sure.
Maybe 1980s John Carpenter.
Yeah.
Chris Kattan was actually kind of fun for a change.
And it's a miracle he survived as long as he did, right? He made it till like 15 minutes before the end of the movie or something.
I half expected him to be the one like behind the house, like
right, yeah.
like killing
That's
everyone.
another way to go with
like,
the story.
Yeah, because he was related to everyone who would come through the house and the owners of the house
who built it and renovated it.
And we haven't seen him since. Like, what else has he been in?
I kind of found him to be very funny.
Yeah,
in this movie,
he had his moments.
And in his first scene where he shows up as the caretaker of the house and gets everybody inside, he's kind of like he's at 11 or 12 even.
He's at Chris Kattan levels.
Yes,
for sure.
You could say that. And then for the rest of the movie, he's just like, oh no, this house is gonna kill us. I'm getting drunk now. Bye everybody. And he wasn't bad. He is arguably the best part of the movie. But I really like Geoffrey Rush when he lets loose like this and turns into like a B-movie actor.
Completely goofy.
Yeah.
What else had Rush been in at this point?
I mean, he was in Shine.
Piano?
He won an Oscar for Shine.
Was he in Piano?
The Piano?
Yeah.
The one with Holly Hunter?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
No.
That was Sam Neill. That was...
I don't know, man.
He is Australian, isn't he? But he was known as like the mighty British actor, one of those kind of classically trained Shakespearean dudes.
Taking a paycheck here.
I guess.
Clearly.
Who knows how much he
Maybe
enjoyed.
he got paid $1 million to go to the house on Haunted Hill.
Maybe they had to film him for 6 days and he was out of there. You know, it was like
very well
$1 million for the week. All right, I would do it.
I thought this movie was interesting because on one side it felt like you went to some cheesy escape room in the valley.
Yes.
That's like overproduced, or you went to Universal Haunted Horror Nights or whatever.
Right. It had those maze elements to it.
And the overproduced.
Literally, they get lost in the
Hollywood, very specifically Hollywood feel.
Mm-hmm.
But then occasionally you're right, there was like elements of something interesting happening in some shots.
Like when Geoffrey Rush gets stuck in the spinny room, the zoetrope room,
yeah,
and he starts hallucinating, he's swimming in the black and white water, and there's like weird fucking faceless monsters down there.
Right.
Holy cow, that's like crazy stuff.
That was and like right at the beginning of that too, when there was like this weird shot of like a nurse like leaning in, but it was like distorted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all that was like really.
They did a lot of like anamorphic tilting.
It almost made me wonder if that. It made me wonder if this movie was all the creative stuff was done by the visual effects supervisor.
I don't think
as
so.
Opposed to, or a second unit team instead of like the main director. But there were a few shots that stood out.
I've seen some other things that this director has done, and that's definitely like in his visual wheelhouse.
Okay.
Those are kind of the tricks he keeps going back to. I don't think he has done anything of note or any kind of big budget since his follow-up to this, which was a horrible movie that Roger Ebert gave 4 stars, called Fear.com, starring Stephen Ray, and it was just a mess.
Really?
Awful movie. Cannot recommend that one. Sorry.
This felt a lot like the other Famke Janssen movie we watched.
Oh yeah, she was in Lord of Illusions.
Lord of Illusions. Lord of Illusions had
I like
similar,
that one a lot more.
it was a much better movie than this, I would say, but at the same time, they had similar tones to them.
Yeah, that one came out probably 4 years before this one. So they were still kind of using the same era visual effects.
Yeah. I guess
same cinematographic.
You got to keep
tricks.
in mind that this movie came out in 1999.
Which
was like, it was up against
The Matrix,
Fight Club, Sleepy Hollow. Not that Sleepy
Hollow.
No, of all the movies I think of.
You know what? That's a beautiful movie.
The Matrix, The Phantom Menace. I mean,
a modern classic.
A modern classic. It's funny. Like when you see something like this that does feel like old school Hollywood.
It does, and I think...
And then you watch something else that was produced the same year that feels like light years ahead.
Mm-hmm.
That's what at the time turned me off, because at the time it felt like this was
seemed
old.
Like, oh Jesus,
like
what are they
we've
doing?
Been there.
Well, I think the whole point of the Dark Castle banner that they're using, that production company, was to make these kind of throwbacks. And I think...
Did they do the Liam Neeson movie too?
No. That was Universal, I think. This is Warner Brothers. But another Dark Castle movie was 13 Ghosts.
That makes sense.
You remember that one?
Yeah.
With Tony Shalhoub.
Never saw it.
In the big glass house. I saw it. Didn't like it. But that was another remake of an old horror movie from the 50s. So I think that was their thing. They were taking these old properties and trying to reinvigorate them, but they were still kind of keeping this old school feel about them.
Right. This did feel like Crimson Peak. That's what I was trying to think of earlier.
Oh, yeah, okay.
The Guillermo movie. But, I mean, the plot's completely different. But just like the...
But, like, the production design
production
and the
design,
visuals are really the main attraction more than the story.
Yeah. It feels like I've seen, like, 4 or 5 other movies exactly like this one.
But you can't recall.
I just can't recall.
Yeah.
I think that's... Whether or not I actually have or not, it just says something about, you know, how it's not exactly original.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the first 5 minutes where they were in an actual theme park that he designed.
Oh, wasn't that stuff great?
I loved that more than I loved like the rest of the movie.
And that's where they established that character, and he's like the master of the double cross. Basically, he's a trickster.
But then he kind of was.
Oh, and we should mention he was being interviewed by reporters played by Lisa Loeb and James Marsters. Loeb?
Isn't it Lisa Loeb?
It's not like an earlobe?
Yeah.
Loeb.
That's how I've always...
Loeb.
Loeb.
I think it's
Loeb.
It's like a 1.5 syllable name. It's not Loeb. I've never heard... I think it's Loeb.
And James Marsters from Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Angel, yeah.
Spike.
But I remember being in the theater watching this movie, and the first roller coaster car goes off the rails, just flies off into nothing. And I was like, oh my God, what are we going to watch here?
And they never even got it. You don't even see where it goes, first of all. The first one.
It's assumed that it lands on other tracks and goes back into the launch bay or whatever.
Yeah, weird movie.
Pretty weird.
A weird movie.
Like, it's this weird mix of the cheesiest stuff ever put on film and like this hint of really cool stuff. I think even though the visual effects at the end of the big bad ghost monster, they don't really look good as a moving thing, but it's a neat concept. It's like this ink blot Rorschach test made up of all these laughing, screaming spirits, and the faces pop out of it. It's really bizarre.
Yeah, it looked like it was just shot by dripping ink into water and photographing it and then mirroring it to get that Rorschach test look. And
I like a couple other little things. I called them out while we were watching the movie. There's a part when a woman with a video camera, she is walking through the basement trying to just film stuff because she wants to be famous or something. This is before YouTube. People were doing that. She comes across a room and she sees on her little screen like nurses and a surgeon at work on a patient on a table, but then she looks up from her screen. There's nobody there. And we are behind her. We're over her shoulder so we can see the screen and the room at the same time. And it's not perfectly synced up, but as she lowers and raises the camera, we see the screen reflecting like, oh, God, the ghosts are only on the screen. Yeah. But this was not a CG shot. This was done live. They just played back the videotape on the camera, and she had to move it up and down. It's such a lo-fi trick, but it really works for me.
Yeah, it might have been one of the first times, if not the first time, that somebody attempted that in a movie.
Yeah.
I feel like there is 1 or 2 times I've seen it since then. But again, can't think of it, so who knows?
It's an easy trick. It seems like it would have been done before that.
Creative. I'm sure that was like... the whole entire movie probably came out of that going. Some screenwriter sitting there going, I want to fucking make a movie about that shot.
Yeah. And the other shot I really love is it's through a security camera because Stephen Price does have his like assistant guy flipping switches and watching everybody with cameras to set off certain traps. We don't even really see anything that they do.
No.
But he does have a guy there, so we're supposed to kind of think like how much of this is the haunted house and how much is him doing this to the people at this party. But he is looking through the security camera and he sees the doctor from the flashback at the beginning of the movie where we see the insane asylum staff get murdered by the patients. We see the doctor kind of like creep into frame through a doorway and he's moving very strangely. He's moving like a puppet almost. Yeah. And I think I listened to the commentary track a long time ago to find out how they did that. Chad, you guessed very close to how they did that. You thought they maybe shot it in reverse.
Yeah.
And that would definitely give you a weird motion when you're trying to walk backwards and reverse it. What they did was they filmed it at like 1/4 speed and then had the actor move at 1/4 speed. So everything, when it's played back at normal speed, like he's moving at a normal pace.
It just looks
But he looks all the movements are exaggerated or very quick.
Right.
And when they shake their face, sort of that Jacob's Ladder effect, if you remember that.
Oh, yeah.
You just film it at a low frame rate, and you play it back at normal speed, and everything just goes blah, blah, blah. But with like a really creepy motion blur on there.
Jacob's Ladder is a movie I want to do someday, too.
Okay.
Even though I don't
It's on Amazon Prime.
I think it's great, but there's some definitely creepy shit in that movie, too.
For sure.
Yeah.
So I think there's enough.
Coming away,
think
like,
there's
I
enough
still
to
feel like
make it
this
worth
movie,
watching.
the movie plays to me exactly like it would have back then.
Mm-hmm.
I probably appreciate it more now,
Mm-hmm.
just because it's a time capsule.
Yeah, I think it serves its purpose well that way.
Yeah, but I think of the time, I think it was rightly kind of forgotten by time, just because.
They made a sequel.
Did they really?
Yeah, I didn't watch it. It looked horrible. Much worse than this one.
Well, it's funny looking at the poster art. Actually, makes it seem like a movie that came out more recent.
With the big bloody handprint.
Well, just the way the characters are lined up, it seems like a movie that came out like maybe 5 to 10 years ago, and yet
it did not.
It did not. 20.
Would you at least recommend it to people who are interested in the horror genre? Or do you think it's
No, I think this falls into a specific genre. I wouldn't call horror. I would not say this is a horror film. I would say that this.
But it's got ghosts and monsters.
This is, if you like the style of Guillermo del Toro's movies, or
some people would consider that very high praise. Guillermo is like a national treasure now.
But there's people who know how to. Well, and this kind of comes back to what I said in the movie. I said I had a comment about it's amazing what you could get away with on a technical level back then. Because like it looked like they had time to do 1 or 2 takes, because some of the takes, like the cameras are fucking bouncing everywhere, like moving all over the place on some of these dolly moves. And
audiences have advanced so far they can't take that shit anymore.
Well, it just, nowadays it would go through the post process. You'd have somebody probably stabilize it, even if they aren't,
or smooth, if not
smooth it out.
perfect,
Something
perfectly stabilized.
Technically, it would have been refined, which basically is why Hollywood movies did so well back in the day, because the machine isn't so much. I mean, there is a process to making the movies, but the machine, to me, that separated independent amateur films from Hollywood films is the post-production aspects, like the sound mix. Like you're not going to get a good sound mix out of an amateur production 90% of the time. And if you have terrible looking video, but it's sound mixed perfectly,
it can buy a lot of grace, good sound.
And Blair Witch, I mean, like it can go a long way. But I mean, not. And I guess technically, I was speaking about this movie like really like just the refinement passes. And you look at somebody like Guillermo, and his films are impeccably refined.
Yeah.
Like they'll stand the test of time because they have been refined so much.
Also, it helps that a lot of his movies are period pieces, so they don't belong to any one era.
Yeah.
Like they don't belong to the era in which they were made, I should say.
Interesting. But yeah, I guess that's what I mean by that. It's like this movie feels dated in a way that
And it's funny you mentioned bad
studio films feel dated.
Bad video. Any movie nowadays, short of Christopher Nolan, or I don't know, some other big name, is going to be shot on video. And I have been very vocal in the past, like if you can't tell the difference, if video cameras have advanced that far to be just as good looking as film.
You can't tell now.
Yeah. Like Blade Runner 2049 was shot on video, and I think it's beautiful. This was kind of
the end of film.
The last 10 years of film. So it does have a certain look. What would it look like today?
I'm
I'm
if they
afraid.
rescanned this movie at 4K.
No, if they shot it today with modern cameras, like I have a fear that it would come out looking like any fucking Insidious or Annabelle movie where it's all way too dark. And they wouldn't give it the kind of attention that they gave to a movie like Blade Runner 2049 because it's just a cheap horror movie, and they'll just let it look like video because nobody fucking cares.
Right.
But at least this is on film and it has color, like lots of blues and reds and yeah.
Well, but even so, even those movies you're describing of the current era, someday that trend will shift because people will get tired of that. And there'll be a whole new thing, and then we can look back on those movies and say, "Oh, those are of that era."
Yeah, I just
and even as technically perfect as so many movies seem at any given time, it's hard for something to be timeless. In a way, it's interesting, like how movies can technically like escape their era. Like you look at Alien.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's aside from some of the technology on the ship or whatever, it doesn't really feel like an old 40-year-old movie.
Right. Yeah, you could watch something. It was shot 10 years after that, and it looks like garbage.
Mm-hmm.
And it may have the exact same plot.
It's all about the level of care.
Totally different.
And that kind of to circle back, reconnect this to our earlier discussion about TV. TV is also shot on video, and if a horror movie today is not given that kind of care, it's basically going to look like anything you can see on Netflix or Amazon Prime. So why should people even go to the theater anymore? It's all the same shit.
Well, I mean, that also goes back to what I was saying before, is who's going to revisit TV? Like TV, to me, like when you think back on it, you think back on the idea of the show you watched. Kind of like people can look back on Lost, and think back on what it was and what it meant at the time. And ultimately, most people were let down by the ending. So that's what they think of first, But if it was a good show, you look back on it. You don't necessarily think about the episodes or the fact that it lasted 40 times longer than a feature film might have.
Right.
You just think back on the idea of it, whereas movies you can go back and put in, and there it is.
It's
usually
a concise little package,
but I think that's what I was saying. That's the thing that we're in the process of losing. It feels like, just because movies it's rare now. It seems like that a quality movie kind of comes along, or that's just us getting older.
Yeah, whining about the new stuff.
Yeah,
I think we are past the age of peak cinema. We are past the age of peak television. We are now in the age of peak content. That's all they're making. Next? I have no idea. Staring at weird
VR
blue screens on your TV.
Plugging ourselves in.
Maybe the game from Star Trek Next Generation where everybody was hypnotized, putting the things into the funnels.
Oh, fuck.
Remember that game?
Yeah.
Yeah, we need that one.
I love that episode.
That's great.
Isn't that the Ashley Judd episode?
Yeah. She's the one who brings it onto the ship, that little bastard.
Well...
This was a good talk.
Do you have anything else to say about this?
No, we're all done. Get lost.
Yeah,
get out of my house.
Go watch this movie if you can remember the title of it.
House on Haunted Hill. It's right there on the podcast title, Chad.
It's Dragon Wagon.
Gamebox Monthly sends a new awesome indie tabletop game right to your door every month. There are multiple subscriptions to choose from, and you can personalize them to fit your style. Also, you're guaranteed to never get a title you already have, letting you focus on what matters most, having a great time with great people.
So visit GameboxMonthly.com and use the promo code DRAGON to get an exclusive discount just for the hell with this listeners.
Once again, that's GameboxMonthly.com.
Rediscover social.